And what were the problem areas that you began to see in your students, which formed the basis of your thesis?
Well, like I saw before, it goes back to that inability to express the full gamut of human emotion. And a lot of people, if they take my threads comments out of context, are like, oh, well, you just want men to be this way and be super vulnerable and use their partner as a therapist. It's like, no, 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 that's not what I'm saying. We absolutely need the warrior persona all
Mm.
the way to, being able to be vulnerable with the right people at the right time.
Absolutely, yeah.
And true masculinity is knowing where and when. That is a powerful man.
Absolutely. You know, it's shocking that you say that. This week, I was watching an interview with Megyn Kelly on election night, speaking about the evisceration of what was originally known as Title IX, when men are accused of a grievous crime, insert what criteria you will, that they have no legal ground to call on the grievance for evidence. And as a result, men have become extremely ostracized. And I'd like to think that an occurrence like the Me Too movement led to that. And what you are saying currently right now, I can guarantee you, has become threefold, quadruple-fold here in my country from where we live. Men have been kicked off their perch. Divorce rates, like you had just mentioned earlier, since the pandemic, have quadrupled like you would not believe. And unfortunately, if you really want to go into the dynamic of us versus them, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's alive and well.
So it's difficult when we have not worked on our own past traumas, when we don't have enough, when we haven't done the work, like you're saying, the reading. Gottmans are a great way to do that. Mark Brackett is another scholar.
Very
I mean,
much.
there's lists of people that we should all be looking at, but how many people take the time to read? And I have found that when
I agree with you.
right, and I have found that the more emotionally intelligent I get, then I am able to hold that space for my man when he's down. And so, for example, and again, I'm referring to my platform and then my threads post. I was open about. I used to think that because a man had control of his emotions, that meant he knew more about emotional regulation than what I thought. And so I would unload and I would emotionally dump on my partner, and he did not have that capacity. And so when he was ever in that down space, like you're talking about, I couldn't handle it. And that's a me problem, but I was making it a him problem, right? And so when both men and women are self-aware and do start to work on themselves, and it doesn't necessarily have to be therapy, it could be a life coach, it could be reading, it could be meditation, whatever healing modality that people want to use to work through those traumas and learn how to emotionally regulate, because there's plenty of programs out there, then
Very
that
much.
raises the level of both sides so that we can open, because the original question was, how do we hold that space for male vulnerability? And it's number one, cultivating that space, and two, never using his vulnerabilities against them. And that again goes back to that male female dynamic where it's like women typically are physically not as strong. And so we use our words as power. And when you're leveraging his vulnerability, you have lost that.
And
When you
equal
use
to
it.
that, because we are stronger, that is why men carry that extra weight of protection.
Yeah.
Which is also another thing which is currently disputed in our society. Steph, I have to agree with you on every criteria, every given way. I'm not going to present any sort of counter argument to that. You are hitting the nail on the head.
Thank you.
Let me say it as it is. We as big boys now, currently the Gen X's and the Gen Z's, need to pull up our socks big time. And I'm saying it on this platform because if I don't say it now, I'm never going to get the opportunity. We need to pull our socks up big time, and we need to sort this nonsense out of trauma. Because there is a thing, and I've spoken about it extensively, about trauma bonding, which is something I want to praise you about in a moment. If you don't have that trauma sorted out, fellas, you are going to do yourself an honorary disservice. You can wave your future goodbye. You can wave your marriage goodbye. Because if that inner child inside yourself has not been put to rest, and I understand there's a other sort of terminology with regards to cradling that inner child. Nonsense. Put it to bed, forgive, and move on. Because if you don't do that, you're a ticking time bomb, and you're presenting yourself as not a protector, but you're proving yourself a potential danger. Remember, out of the two gender species, we are the strongest, meaning that we are going to have to pull up our socks and carry that discipline, whether we want to know it or not. And think about this. I'm a rebellious person. I used to think of the fact that, you know what? I don't want any responsibility, so I'm going to cut myself some slack there in that regard. And ultimately, I stepped onto a landmine. And as a result of that, this is why I do this program, because I want to learn. Because let me put this in plain and simple terms. I can't think of having an unfinished life, which in my mind consists of being a productive member of society, referring back to civics education, and secondly, having a loving partner at my side who will support me in my endeavors and who I can support in turn, and raising a family and subsequently carrying on the gene pool onwards to the next generation. And I know it's a shaky road, but ultimately you're going to have to catch that wake up for yourself.